Part 5. Light Across the Stars. The galaxy was awake. Humanity had crossed the void to Lunara Prime, and the bond between humans and Lunari had grown stronger than anyone could have imagined. The Voyager Prime now sat as a shining bridge between two worlds, one of blue oceans and green forests, the other of silver forests and glowing rivers. But peace, as always, required vigilance. The distant Varkal Dominion continued to watch, curious yet cautious. They had seen the humans, DEATHWORLDers as the legends called them, and had realized that they were not conquerors, but something far more powerful, a species capable of turning challenge into growth, fear into opportunity, and danger into hope. On Lunara Prime, Captain Sorrell and Dr. Elena Reyes worked side by side in the Council of Unity, a meeting space built with both human and Lunari designs. The room glowed softly with harmonized light from Lunari crystals, reflecting on the smooth floors like liquid starlight. "We have learned much from each other," Sorrell said, her eyes shining. "Your people face hardship and turn it into strength. You see possibility where others see limits," Elena nodded. "We learned the same from you. You taught us patience, wisdom, and how to appreciate the beauty of knowledge," Rayler added thoughtfully. "Together, we can create something the galaxy has never seen before, a network of friendship, knowledge, and shared exploration." Sorrell smiled. "Yes, but the Dominion will not leave us alone. They may watch, test, and try to challenge us. We must be ready." Elena looked at the holographic map of the Dominion's fleets. "Then we adapt just like we always do. That's what DEATHWORLDers do." The humans and Lunari began Project Starlink, a network of observation satellites, communication beacons, and adaptive energy shields stretching across their sector of space. Every installation reflected the cooperation of both species. Some satellites were human-made, with advanced mechanical design. Others were Lunari, delicate and self-powered by star energy crystals. Together, they formed a lattice of light, energy, and information across the void. Children of both species watched the construction from safe stations. They learned science and creativity together. Every day was a lesson, every experiment a small miracle. Elena smiled as she watched a young Lunari child float near a human child on hovershoes, giggling as they built miniature satellites together. "This," she whispered, "is the future." Sorrell's voice came softly. "And they are the reason we fight to protect hope, not just lives." Far away, the Varkal Dominion convened a secret council. Their leaders were puzzled. Humanity, a seemingly fragile species from a dangerous world, had survived contact with them and thrived. "A species that adapts faster than our calculations," one officer said. "They turn adversity into strength. They learn without fear." Another added, "Their allies, the Lunari, are peaceful, but together they are unstoppable. Their unity cannot be broken." The Dominion considered their options. Attack would be unpredictable and risky. Observe would yield no control. And diplomacy? They did not know how to communicate with beings who valued creativity, friendship, and courage over obedience. In the end, they hesitated. Their attention shifted from aggression to curiosity. For the first time in centuries, they felt uncertainty, a rare emotion in an empire built on control. Meanwhile, Elena, Sorrell, and the Council of Unity developed a plan for exploration beyond known space. Using Lunari warp techniques and human engineering, the Voyager Prime was upgraded with a hybrid propulsion system. The ship could fold light and move faster, safely through uncharted sectors. Elena's log entry read, "We travel not to conquer, but to learn. To meet worlds unknown, to share ideas, and to leave friendship wherever we go. This is what it means to be human, and now, what it means to be Lunari's allies." The Council agreed to send small teams to neighboring star systems to offer aid, share knowledge, and document life forms. Every team included both humans and Lunari, working together as equals. One day, while monitoring the Dominion's outer boundary, sensors detected an unusual energy signature. A massive storm of cosmic radiation was approaching the sector. The Council convened immediately. "Captain Sorrell," Elena said, "the storm could disable communications and damage satellites. If it reaches the network, it could set us back months." Sorrell studied the display. "Then we will prepare, but we will not fear it. Humanity has thrived on harsh worlds, and so have we. Together, we will endure. Using the Voyager Prime and several Lunari vessels, the team positioned adaptive shields across the outer sectors. Humans recalculated energy dispersion in real time, while Lunari crystals absorbed and redirected the cosmic waves. When the storm arrived, the universe seemed to roar. Lightning-like pulses raced through space. Energy surges flickered across sensors. Yet the combined efforts of humans and Lunari held the network steady. The storm passed, leaving the satellites unharmed, and the team celebrated quietly. "We survived," Elena whispered. "Together," Sorel's eyes glowed. "Yes, and that is the essence of unity." Months passed. Humanity's presence in space grew stronger, not through war, but through ingenuity, resilience, and friendship. They built the first interstellar library, combining Earth's knowledge with Lunari wisdom. Schools, laboratories, and cultural hubs were constructed on Lunara Prime, each shared equally between the species. News of the humans spread quietly across the galaxy. Other peaceful civilizations observed with interest. They were inspired by the stories of humans who had survived harsh worlds, crossed the stars, and helped friends without seeking power or dominance. Even the Dominion began to change its perception. Their scouts reported humans as unique, unpredictable, and potentially powerful, but guided by morality and curiosity rather than violence. One quiet evening, Elena stood with Sorel on a viewing platform overlooking the twin moons of Lunara Prime. "I never imagined we'd be here," Elena said softly. "Meeting your people, building bridges across space. It feels unreal." Sorel's eyes shimmered with gentle light. "Unreal, perhaps. But reality is what we make it. The stars are vast and danger may come. But your presence, humanity's courage, has reminded us that light grows brighter in darkness." Elena smiled. "We only did what humans do, adapt, learn, and help when we can. I think that's why the legends called us DEATHWORLDers. Not because we destroy, but because we survive and grow stronger through every challenge." Sorel's voice was soft, almost a hum. "And now the galaxy knows. Your light is a beacon for all who wish for friendship and knowledge." The future stretched before them, wide and endless. Humanity had proven that survival, creativity, and courage were forces that could influence the stars. The Lunari had learned that wisdom and patience could amplify courage. Together, they had created something unprecedented. A galaxy where friendship and ingenuity could outshine fear and dominance. The Varkal Dominion remained distant, curious, yet cautious. They had seen humanity's spirit and, for the first time, wondered if control was not the path forward. Perhaps there was a better way, through respect, observation, and collaboration. The humans and Lunari did not wait for permission or acceptance. They continued to explore, to build, and to connect. Each new system they visited became a beacon of hope. Each new friendship formed strengthened the network across the galaxy. Elena sent a message back to Earth. "We have arrived. The stars are not empty. Friends exist in every corner. And the light of humanity is not just for our planet. It is for all who wish to learn, grow, and survive with courage." Across the stars, Captain Sorel replied, "And we will shine together. Wherever darkness lurks, wherever fear whispers, we will be a light. You are not only survivors, you are inspirers. You are the DEATHWORLDers, and your wrath is the promise of hope." On Lunara Prime, humans and Lunari celebrated quietly. Children laughed, music filled the air, and light danced across the silver forests. Outside, stars glittered as if acknowledging the union. The galaxy had been reminded that courage and friendship could overcome even uncertainty. The war had ended long ago, or at least that was what everyone believed. Across the stars, the wounds of battle still floated in silence. Broken ships drifting between planets, ruined colonies without power, and empty worlds where cities once shone like jewels. The Orth Concord, a great alliance of many alien races, had finally defeated the Dark Varn Dominion, bringing what they called peace. But the peace felt hollow. It was quiet, too quiet. For 10 long years, the galaxy had lived under that silence. The communication grids were down, trade routes lost, and thousands of outposts had gone dark. Entire systems were forgotten as the Concord tried to rebuild. Every race was tired. Every commander, every soldier, every family simply wanted to rest. Among them was Captain Ryn Taylor, a veteran of the last great battle. Her ship, the Luminous Path, once carried hundreds of crew, but now it drifted slowly around her homeworld, Orth Prime, on quiet patrol duty. Rin was no longer the fearless commander she once had been. Her golden armor was scratched and faded. Her bright eyes carried the shadow of loss. She had seen too much, cities burning, friends vanishing, and entire planets falling to ruin. And so, the Deathworlder's wrath was no longer legend of fear. It was a legacy of light, creativity, and hope, echoing across the cosmos for generations to come. The SOS that had once been sent in desperation had reached the wrong species, only to discover the right ones. The universe had never been brighter. The station was colder inside than space itself. The air smelled of metal and time. Faint lights blinked on the walls, showing signs that some parts of the old human outpost were still alive. Captain Rin Taylor stood at the entrance of the main control chamber, her breath fogging inside her helmet. Her team followed closely: Kira, the quiet scout, Toval, the logical engineer, and Mayar, a historian of lost civilizations. The room was circular, filled with consoles, broken screens, and a single glowing terminal at the center. The light from it pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Toval scanned it with his wrist tool. "It's an old human AI system," he said. "Model designation Seraph. Somehow it's still functioning." "After 30 years?" Kira whispered. "That's impossible." "Humans built strange things," Mayar murmured softly. "They believed in leaving parts of themselves behind." Rin approached the terminal. Its screen flickered to life, showing lines of human language. Then a calm digital voice filled the room. "Welcome, Captain Rin Taylor. We have been waiting." The voice was clear, gentle, and surprisingly human. Rin froze. "You know my name?" "Yes," the AI replied. "It was in the records. The humans trusted the Orcs conquered. You were among those who fought beside them." Kira looked around uneasily. "This station has been silent for decades. How does it still know who we are?" "Because," Seraph said, "and we never stopped listening." Rin felt a strange chill. The station was not just a ruin. It was aware. They spent hours exploring Epsilon 9. The corridors stretched endlessly, some filled with floating debris, others sealed by ice. The team split up to search different sections. Toval and Mayar worked on restoring more power to the station. Rin and Kira moved toward the living quarters, guided by the AI's soft voice through their communicators. "Captain, the humans called this level Habitation Wing 4, Seraph explained. "Only one life support pod remains functional." "One?" Rin repeated. "Yes, it was reactivated 30 years ago. That number again, 30 years. The same time the beacon came back online. When they reached the habitation wing, they found doors half open and covered in frost. Inside the rooms were old human belongings, dusty uniforms, pictures, and journals sealed in metal containers. Kira picked up a photo from a desk. It showed several humans smiling in front of a large banner that read, "Outpost Epsilon 9 for the future of the frontier." They looked happy, Kira whispered. "They were," Rin said softly. "Humans always smiled before a storm." At the end of the corridor, they found a sealed chamber with a glowing lock. Seraph's voice echoed again. "Captain, that room is restricted." It was the command center of Officer Elias Ward. Rin turned sharply. "Who was he?" "Communications officer. He remained behind when the others left." "Why?" The AI paused. "He said someone had to keep the lights on." Rin exchanged a look with Kira. Someone had stayed here alone for years? Toval and Mayar soon joined them, their tools glowing faintly. "We've stabilized the power core," Toval reported. "Life support is at 30%. The AI's network is fully operational now." "Good," Rin said. Seraph opened the command chamber. Access granted. The heavy door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a small control room, cleaner than the rest of the station. Dust lay everywhere except for one small area, a desk with recent signs of use. On the desk sat a half-eaten ration pack, a working lamp, and a personal communicator blinking with unread messages. Kira touched the pack. "Captain." "This is fresh." Rin looked around slowly. "That means someone is still here." As if answering her thought, Seraph's voice returned. "You are correct, Captain. Officer Elias Ward is alive." The team froze. "Alive?" Rin repeated. "After all these years?" "He entered cryogenic sleep several times, but he wakes to perform maintenance. He keeps the station running." "He has been waiting for contact," Mayar whispered in awe. "A single human, alone for decades." Rin felt her heart race. She looked toward the door at the back of the room. Another sealed hatch dimly lit. Where is he now? Dormitory section. Cryo chamber 3. Without hesitation, Rin turned. Take us there. The path to the dormitory was quiet. Only the hum of the ship's systems and the echo of their footsteps filled the halls. The AI's soft voice guided them through each turn. As they walked, Rin thought about this man, Elias Ward. Why would anyone choose to remain in such isolation? What kind of strength did that require? They finally reached the chamber. It was a large circular room filled with old cryopods. Most were dark and empty, but one glowed with pale blue light. Frost curled around its edges. Rin stepped forward and wiped the frost away from the glass. Inside was a man, human, older, with streaks of gray in his beard. His expression was calm, peaceful, as if dreaming. Is he alive? Kira whispered. Toval scanned the pod. Vitals are steady. Low metabolic activity. The system is cycling him awake. The AI spoke again. He has sensed your arrival. Please stand by. The chamber lights brightened slightly. The pod hissed as warm air filled the room. Slowly, the glass opened and the man's eyes fluttered open. For a long moment, he said nothing. He simply looked at them. 4 alien visitors standing in awe. Then he smiled faintly. Took you long enough, he said in a quiet, rough voice. Rin stepped forward, stunned. You're Elias Ward? He nodded, rubbing his eyes. That's me. Communications Officer Epsilon 9. Been a while since I've had company. Kira almost couldn't speak. You've been here alone. For 30 years? Elias chuckled softly. Not alone. I had Seraph. And about 2,000 maintenance drones, though most of them broke down a long time ago. His tone was calm, almost casual, but his eyes carried the weight of years. Rin studied him. Why did you stay behind when everyone else left? He turned to the glowing console beside his pod. Someone had to make sure the relays stayed alive. If we lost contact, all those border colonies would have been stranded. The war might have ended, but communication, that's what keeps a galaxy breathing. Toval said quietly. You kept it running all these years? Mostly, Elias said, tapping the side of the console. Seraph helped when systems started failing. We managed to send small pulses into the void, hoping someone would answer. Rin's voice softened. And now someone did. Elias looked at her for a moment, then nodded. Guess I wasn't wrong to wait. They returned to the command room together. As Elias walked through the station, the AI greeted him warmly. It was clear that over the years the man and the machine had become companions. Rin watched as Elias reconnected several terminals, bringing more lights back online. You said this place was a communications outpost, she said. Can it still send messages across systems? Elias nodded slowly. If I can restore the beacon core. It's deep below the main deck. The power lines are fried, but the structure's intact. What's the beacon core? Kira asked. Elias smiled slightly. It's what kept the galaxy talking before the war. A network link that connected thousands of colonies. If we can power it again, maybe we can reconnect them. Rin's heart stirred with cautious hope. Then let's do it. That night, the station felt alive again. Power flowed through old circuits. Lights flickered to life and faint music began playing from somewhere in the system. An old human melody. Elias stood by the viewport, gazing at the stars. Rin joined him quietly. It's strange, she said softly. We thought humanity was gone. Yet here you are. He smiled faintly.
Humans are hard to erase.
We don't disappear easily. She looked at him curiously. Why send the signal now after all this time? He sighed. Because the silence was growing louder. I started hearing echoes, small signals from other worlds, weak and broken. I thought maybe someone was out there trying to reach back. I just answered. Rin nodded slowly. And we heard you. Elias looked at her, his eyes tired but warm. Then maybe the war isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's just the long pause before the next verse. Outside the window, the stars shimmered quietly as if listening, and deep within the heart of Epsilon 9, the beacon core waited, silent for decades, ready to shine once more. For the first time in decades, the old outpost Epsilon 9 was alive again. Lights flickered on in the dark hallways. Machines hummed softly as power returned to systems that had slept for generations. Captain Rin Taylor stood beside Elias Ward, the lone human survivor, as the main control room came to life. The glowing screens displayed maps of long-lost human colonies, silent worlds waiting to be heard again. Rin watched Elias move from one console to another, his steps sure and practiced. Even after so many years alone, he knew this place like it was part of him. His hands were rough, his face lined with time, but his eyes, they carried a quiet light. He was calm, not proud or bitter, just steady. "You remember every wire and code in this place?" Rin said softly. Elias smiled a little. "When you live here long enough, the walls start talking to you. You learn to listen." Behind them, Kira, Toval, and Mayar worked on connecting their ship systems to the station's network. It was not easy. Human technology was old and full of strange logic. But with Elias guiding them, things moved faster. "Captain," Toval reported, "the beacon core's location is confirmed, 6 levels below the main deck. But the elevator shafts are blocked by ice. We'll have to go down manually." Rin nodded. "Then that's what we'll do." Before leaving, Rin turned to Elias. "You should rest first. You've just woken from cryosleep." He shook his head lightly. "I've slept enough for one lifetime, Captain." Rin studied him for a moment. He spoke softly, but there was something powerful behind his calm voice. The kind of strength that came from years of endurance. "Very well," she said. "You lead the way." The descent to the lower levels was slow. The corridors grew darker and colder as they went down. Layers of frost covered the walls, and each step echoed through the silent halls. Elias walked in front with a handheld light. "Back in the day," he said quietly, "this place was full of noise. Engineers laughing, music from the barracks, radio chatter from every sector. It never felt empty." "What happened when the war ended?" Kira asked gently. He paused for a moment, shining the light ahead. "Most of the crew left when supply ships stopped coming. I stayed to keep the network alive. I thought the others might return when peace came. But peace never came this far." There was no anger in his tone, only acceptance. Mayar looked at him curiously. "And all this time you waited?" Elias nodded. "Waiting wasn't hard. Hope gives you something to do even when nothing else works." When they reached the lower deck, they found the doors sealed by thick ice. Toval used a small plasma cutter to melt through. Behind it lay a huge circular chamber filled with old machinery. The beacon core. It was a massive structure of silver and glass, shaped like a tower reaching up through the ceiling. Faint light pulsed inside it like a dying heartbeat. "This is it," Elias said softly, the voice of the frontier. Rin looked around the silent room. "Can it still function?" "Maybe," he said, stepping closer to the core. "It's been running on emergency power for decades. The internal processors are still intact, but the conduits are cracked. If we restore full energy, it might wake again." He opened a control panel revealing dozens of tangled wires. He began working with simple tools, a screwdriver, a patch cable, a small manual welder. Toval offered to help. "I can connect your system to ours." Elias nodded with gratitude. "Good, I'll handle the old circuits. You handle the new ones. Let's see if we can make time and technology shake hands." Rin smiled faintly at the phrase. Humans had a way of turning work into poetry. For hours they worked in silence. Only the sounds of sparks, the hum of power, and quiet breathing filled the air. At one point, Rin asked softly, "Elias, what did you do when you realized no one was coming back?" He didn't look up. "At first I sent daily reports, then weekly, then once a year. After a while I just started talking to Seraph. I told her stories, about the people who served here, the places we used to visit, the sky on Earth." "Earth," Mayar repeated quietly. "Was it beautiful?" Elias smiled faintly. "It was home. Not perfect, not peaceful, but always full of life. We used to say that no matter where we went, we carried a piece of it with us." Rin listened quietly. She had heard stories of Earth from old records, a blue planet full of oceans and forests long lost to time. But hearing it from someone who had seen it with his own eyes felt different. After a while, Toval looked up. "Powers restored to 60%. The core is responding." The great tower began to glow brighter, slowly waking from its long sleep. Lines of light crawled up its surface, forming ancient symbols of human design. Elias checked the readings. "It's stable. Just a few more connections." He paused and looked at Rin. "Captain, once the beacon activates, it'll send a signal across several systems. Anyone with an active relay could receive it. Do you think anyone will answer? She asked. Elias smiled softly. If there's even one person listening, that's enough. When the final switch was flipped, the beacon came fully alive. A deep hum filled the chamber and beams of light shot upward, painting the ceiling in gold and white. The entire station vibrated gently as the signal pulsed outward. Then the room went quiet again. Everyone held their breath, waiting. A moment later, Seraph's voice echoed from the speakers. Transmission successful. Receiving replies from multiple sources. Elias turned sharply to the console. What? Lines of incoming signals filled the screen. Faint, scattered, but real. Epsilon 9, this is Vega Outpost. Reading your signal. Arian Station here. We thought you were gone. Confirming link. Frontier Node 27 responding. One after another the voices came, weak but clear. Dozens of old human and allied colonies, places everyone believed lost, were answering back. Kira covered her mouth in shock. They're alive. Rin stared at the glowing core, her eyes shining. You did it, Elias. You brought them back. Elias said nothing at first. He just stood there, listening to the sound of life returning to the galaxy. His hands trembled slightly as he whispered, We did it. All of us. Over the next few hours, messages poured in. Many were incomplete or filled with static, but they carried the same emotion: relief, joy, disbelief. Epsilon 9 became the center of a storm of communication. The station that had once been silent now echoed with voices from across the stars. Rin's crew relayed data to the Orith Concord headquarters, informing them of the discovery. But to Rin, this was more than a report. It was a miracle. Elias, she said quietly, your waiting wasn't in vain. He looked out the viewport, where distant stars twinkled. I never thought it was. Hope isn't about waiting for answers. It's about believing they'll come when they're meant to. Later, as the crew rested in the habitation wing, Rin walked alone through the quiet corridors. She stopped by an old human banner still hanging on the wall. Its colors had faded, but the words were still readable. For the future of the frontier. She touched the edge of the cloth and smiled faintly. Elias found her there a few minutes later. He held 2 steaming cups of something warm, synthetic tea from the Concord ship. You look like someone who's thinking too hard, he said gently. Maybe, Rin admitted with a small laugh. It's just, we thought the humans were gone. And now I find one who never gave up. It's humbling. Elias handed her the cup. We humans have a saying, you only lose when you stop trying. I guess I just never stopped. Rin looked at him with quiet respect. Your people had spirit. I understand now why the galaxy still remembers you. He took a slow sip of the tea, looking out at the stars. The galaxy forgets fast. But that's all right. As long as one voice keeps calling, someone will always answer. Rin smiled. And you were that voice, Elias chuckled softly. Just a stubborn man with a broken radio. But Rin knew better. She looked around the control room. At the glowing screens and the hum of the beacon, the human who stayed behind had done more than keep the lights on. He had rekindled connection, hope, and unity in a galaxy that had forgotten what it felt like to be one. The silence of the stars had ended, and in that silence's place rose something far brighter, the sound of life returning, carried by a human voice that refused to fade. The corridor leading to the beacon core was quiet, almost sacred. Captain Rin Taller, Elias Ward, and the team moved carefully, their footsteps echoing softly against the metallic walls of Epsilon 9. The hum of returning power filled the station, but the lower levels still felt like a place frozen in time. The beacon core itself was massive. Its silver and glass tower rose through the center of the chamber, and lines of faint light traced intricate patterns along its surface. For decades it had been silent, waiting in the dark, a monument to human ingenuity and hope. Elias paused at the foot of the tower. It hasn't been touched for 30 years, he said quietly. The systems are fragile. One wrong move and we could lose everything. Toval examined the lower conduits, which had been damaged by years of neglect. The wiring is brittle, but it looks repairable. We'll need to reroute power through the auxiliary channels first. Rin studied the structure in awe. How does it work? Elias smiled faintly. The beacon is more than a machine. It's a network hub. When fully powered, it can transmit signals across thousands of light years. It can reach every active human colony and Concord outpost. It's what kept the frontier alive before the war. Kira's eyes widened. So this thing can call everyone back? Yes, Elias said softly. If it works, the frontier will hear our voice again. They split into teams. Elias and Toval worked on the core's power conduits, carefully reconnecting cables and cleaning corrosion. Rin and Kira handled the auxiliary systems, making sure the power flow would be steady. Mayar documented everything, taking careful notes of the beacon's design and history. Hours passed. Sparks flew as Toval patched broken lines. Elias guided him with steady hands, his knowledge of the station unrivaled. Despite his years alone, he moved with precision, every motion confident and deliberate. At one point, Rin paused to watch him. She noticed the way he handled each tool with care, as if the beacon were a living thing. You've spent a lifetime here, Elias, she said quietly. How did you keep going? Elias didn't look up. Because someone has to. When the world thinks it's over, someone has to keep the lights on even if no one is watching. I believed that hope was worth the wait. Rin felt a lump in her throat. She had faced many battles, seen countless lives lost. Yet here was a human who had endured far longer than most soldiers ever could, not through force but through sheer will. As the repairs progressed, the station itself seemed to respond. Lights glowed brighter, hums became steadier, and faint vibrations ran through the floor. Seraph, the AI, assisted tirelessly, guiding their movements and monitoring every fluctuation of the core. Power flow stabilizing, Seraph reported. Remaining conduits require manual calibration. Elias nodded. We're almost there. He moved to the central control panel and began entering commands, cross-referencing old logs with current diagnostics. Suddenly, a loud hum echoed through the chamber. A small section of the beacon lit up fully, casting beams of blue and gold into the ceiling. Elias stepped back, smiling faintly. Partial activation, he said. Not enough to reach the outer colonies, but it's alive. Toval checked the systems. We're close. Just a few more calibrations. While the engineers worked, Rin spoke quietly to Elias. Do you think the colonies will answer? He looked at her thoughtfully. Some will. Some might not. But even if one colony responds, it proves the frontier is still alive. That's all any of us need to know right now. Kira, curious as always, asked, Weren't you afraid of being alone all this time? Elias laughed softly.
Fear doesn't last forever.
You learned to live with it. Besides, I had Seraph, and the thought that someone someday might hear my signal kept me going. Rin nodded slowly. She could understand that feeling, the hope that one voice could reach another across the stars. Night fell outside the station, though inside the lower levels, the core glowed steadily. After many hours, the last conduits were repaired, and the team prepared for the final activation sequence. Elias stood at the main console, his fingers hovering over the keys. This is it, he said softly. Once we start, the beacon will transmit. There's no turning back. Rin placed a hand on his shoulder. You've done everything right. We'll be here with you. He smiled faintly. Thank you, Captain. With a deep breath, he pressed the first key. The core hummed and vibrated. Lights traced along its silver frame and the glow expanded. Slowly, steadily, energy flowed through the long dormant circuits. Then a beam of light shot upward, stretching through the ceiling of the chamber, breaking into the empty corridors. The beacon was awake. Seraph's voice filled the chamber, steady and calm. Beacon core active. Transmission sequence initiated. Signals spreading through all known human and Concord relays. Elias and Toval watched the screens as lines of communication began to respond. The faint pulses of messages appeared, scattered at first, then steadily increasing. Epsilon 9, this is Vega Outpost. Receiving your signal. Aryan Station confirming connection. Thought you were lost. Frontier Node 27 online. Copying transmission. The room erupted with quiet excitement. Rin felt a smile spread across her face. The long silence of the frontier had ended. Elias turned to the team, eyes bright with emotion. They're hearing us. After all this time, someone's finally hearing us, Mayar wiped a tear quietly. It's incredible. You never gave up. You stayed alive, and now the frontier knows they're not alone. Elias nodded. One voice can start a chain. That's all it takes. For the next few hours, messages poured in. Some were short, just simple confirmations. Others were long, filled with emotion, describing lost worlds and people who had survived the war in hiding. Rin and her team relayed these messages to the conquered fleet. But even as they worked, Rin felt something deeper. This was more than technology. It was hope returned. The beacon had not just transmitted signals, it had restored faith. It reminded the galaxy that life persisted, that survival was possible, and that even the smallest act of patience could ripple across the stars. Later, the team rested in the habitation wing, exhausted but satisfied. Elias leaned back in a chair, watching the lights of the core glow through the viewport. Rin joined him. "You did it, Elias. You brought the frontier back to life." He smiled faintly. "We did it together. Humans alone can't do everything, but sometimes humans can be the spark. And sparks? Well, they catch quickly." Outside the station, the distant stars shimmered as if in agreement. For decades, the frontier had been silent, waiting for a signal. Now the galaxy was awake, and the chain of life was being restored. The beacon core pulsed softly, a heartbeat that could be felt throughout the station. Elias glanced at Rin and the crew. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "we begin reaching out personally. We'll connect every colony, every outpost, and slowly, the frontier will come alive again." Rin nodded. "It will take time, but if anyone could do it, it's you," Elias chuckled. "Time is something I've learned to wait for, and now it's worth every second." As the night deepened outside, the station was no longer silent. Beams of light from the beacon core reached far beyond Epsilon 9, traveling across the galaxy. Somewhere, ships far away received the signal and began to respond. The frontier had heard a human voice again, a voice that refused to be forgotten, and the galaxy, for the first time in decades, began to awaken. On the bridge of the luminous path, Captain Rin Taylor watched the communications feed with growing awe. Signals from distant colonies, once silent, lost to time, now flickered across the display. Some were faint, almost imperceptible. Others were clear and steady, alive with voices that had not been heard in years. Beside her, Elias Ward studied the same data. His calm expression concealed the deep relief he felt. 30 years of isolation, decades of patience and endurance had brought this moment to life. "The frontier is waking," Rin said softly. Elias nodded. "And we're the spark." The station's beacon core pulsed steadily, sending signals to every known human and Concord outpost. Its light shone like a lighthouse in the cosmic dark, reaching worlds that had been forgotten. Elsewhere, on a small colony orbiting the red dwarf Silanth 4, an old communications officer named Lyra Tane stared at her console in disbelief. The screen, long silent, flickered to life. "Epsilon 9 calling. Do you copy?" Lyra gasped. The message was from a station thought lost in the war decades ago. She hesitated for a moment before pressing the reply. "This is Silana 4, we copy." "Repeat, we copy." Across the frontier, similar scenes unfolded. Hidden outposts, surviving human colonies, and even isolated Orth settlements began responding. Messages traveled like ripples across water, each response feeding the next. Back on Epsilon 9, Elias and Rin watched the flood of communications. "Look at them," Rin said quietly. They thought they were alone. Elias's smile was faint but proud. Alone doesn't last forever. Not when someone refuses to give up. The next day, the landing teams began arriving from nearby conquered ships. Supplies were delivered, repair crews assisted, and engineers worked with Elias to stabilize Epsilon 9 systems. For the first time, the station felt alive not just with machinery, but with people. Conversations filled the halls. Laughter, cautious but genuine, echoed through corridors that had been silent for decades. Elias guided each newcomer with quiet authority. He showed them the station's inner workings, the beacon core, and the communications arrays. Every explanation carried the weight of experience, decades of trial, error, and endurance. Rin watched him, struck by his calm and steadfast determination. This was a human who had survived the solitude of space, outlasting fear, boredom, and hopelessness, and now he was leading a new beginning. As the days passed, more distant colonies began responding. Some had believed all contact was lost, while others had simply survived in hiding, unsure if anyone remained. The beacon had become a lifeline, reconnecting humans scattered across the stars. One colony, Nova Prime, had been isolated for over 50 years. Its people, once young and full of life, were now elderly but still able to respond. Their messages were filled with joy and disbelief. Epsilon 9? Is this real? We thought we were alone. Thank you. The frontier is alive again. Elias listened to each transmission in silence. This is why I stayed, he whispered. Rin placed a hand on his shoulder. You didn't just stay alive. You gave life back to thousands. He nodded, eyes reflecting the glowing core. Hope is contagious. I just lit the first flame. Meanwhile, the Orith Concord High Command received the news with amazement. Ships long lost to the war were reported as operational again. Scouts found colonies thought destroyed, all responding to Epsilon 9's call. Rin sent detailed reports back to headquarters. Captain Taylor, she said quietly, Elias Ward has done more for the frontier than we ever imagined. His patience and determination are remarkable. He deserves recognition and our full support. High Command replied with immediate orders. Reinforcement fleets would be sent to assist every responding colony. Communication lines would be re-established, supply chains restored, and the frontier slowly brought back into the galaxy's fold. Elias, however, remained calm. Recognition is not what matters. Connecting lives is what matters. Rin couldn't help but smile at his humility. In her years of command, she had met many heroes, but few carried such quiet strength. On the station, a small celebration took place. Crew and engineers, old and new, gathered in the main control room. Lights glowed warmly and music, recorded centuries ago, played softly. Rin raised her glass of warm tea. To the frontier, and to those who refused to give up. Elias, holding his cup, looked around at the people who had joined them. To hope, he said simply. The room echoed with soft laughter and clinking glasses. For the first time in decades, the frontier felt alive, not just with signals and lights, but with hearts beating in unison. In the quiet of the command chamber, Elias took a moment to look at the stars through the viewport. The distant galaxies shone brightly, and he knew the message had traveled far. Somewhere perhaps other humans were listening, waiting for a voice like his to reach them. Rin joined him quietly. Do you ever think about why you stayed here? She asked. He nodded. Every day. But it was never just about me. Someone had to answer the call, and if I didn't, who else would? Rin thought about that. She had faced many battles, seen countless lives lost, but Elias had endured something different. Solitude, patience, and hope stretched across decades. You've reminded the galaxy of something important, she said. Even when we think the war is over, even when we believe everything is lost, there's always a chance someone will answer. Elias smiled faintly. And now they have. Over the following weeks, colonies were reconnected, trade routes slowly reopened, and communication lines restored. Children who had never heard other human voices now listened to stories from distant worlds. Communities long isolated rediscovered friendship, knowledge, and cooperation. Epsilon 9 became a symbol of endurance and hope. The beacon core pulsed continuously, transmitting signals across the frontier, ensuring no colony would ever feel forgotten again. Rin worked alongside Elias, coordinating new missions and relaying messages to conquered fleets. Kira explored the station, marveling at the engineering and human creativity that had endured for decades. Mayar recorded everything, chronicling the rebirth of the frontier for future generations. Toval repaired old systems, ensuring the beacon core would never fail again. Together, they rebuilt not just a station, but the lifeline of the galaxy. One evening, as the station quieted down, Rin and Elias stood by the beacon core. Its lights glowed steadily, sending energy and hope across the stars. Do you think the frontier will ever be quiet again? Rin asked. Elias chuckled softly. Maybe, but quiet is not the same as gone. The frontier will always have voices, human voices, Orith voices, and the voices of all who refuse to give up. That is what keeps it alive, Rin nodded. You've done more than I ever imagined. He looked at her, eyes steady and calm. I stayed because someone had to. But the frontier lives because everyone who answered did their part. I was just the first. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly. The galaxy, once silent and forgotten, had found its voice again. Epsilon 9. The station thought lost had become a beacon, not just of light, but of courage, endurance, and hope. The next morning, new ships arrived at the station. Colonies sent delegates, supply convoys arrived, and engineers prepared to repair long-damaged outposts. Messages of gratitude flowed continuously. Humanity and the Orth conquered alike realized that a single determined voice could reconnect a galaxy. Elias led the efforts with quiet strength, teaching, guiding, and inspiring all who came. Rin remained by his side, witnessing history being rewritten before her eyes. "The frontier is alive again," she said quietly. "Yes," Elias replied, "and it will stay alive, as long as someone refuses to stop calling." And so, the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. Even after war, even after silence, hope endures. They had thought the war was over, that the frontier was lost and that humanity was gone. But one human had answered the call, and through that one voice, the stars themselves had listened.